Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the regular school committee meeting to order. Today is March 9th, 2021, and we are starting our meeting this evening at 7:12. Pursuant to Governor Baker's emergency order modifying the state's open meeting law issued March 12, 2020, the March 9th, 2021 meeting of the Peabody School Committee will be held in the library of the Higgins Middle School. For school committee members, superintendent, assistant superintendent, and central office administrators as requested by the superintendent. And today we have our full committee and our superintendent, Dr. Josh Vidala, and our assistant superintendent, Dr. Christopher Lord. In accordance with the governor's order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place, the regular meeting of the Peabody School Committee will not allow in-person attendance to members of the public, but every effort will be made for the public to adequately access the meeting in real time via technological means. Alternative public access to this meeting will be provided in the following manner. We are being televised live by Peabody Access TV. Real-time public participation can be addressed to the Peabody School Committee utilizing Zoom virtual meeting software for remote access. The application will allow users to view the meeting and make a comment during public participation. And as we have had now for a number of meetings, those who are listening and would like to speak, please raise your hand, and Dr. Vidala will welcome you in, and you will can be heard at that time during public participation. Our minutes are also being taken today by our recording secretary, Leanna Harris. And let's start our meeting today. If everybody could please stand for a moment of silence. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everyone. We have some minutes from our last meeting, February 23rd, 2021, our regular school committee meeting minutes. I'd open those up for possible adoption.
Motion to receive and approve.
Okay. Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Dunn to approve the minutes of February 23rd, 2021, our regular school committee meeting. Seconded by Mr. Arnottis. Roll call vote for approval, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin-Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Now we'll go to approval of bills. Mrs. Carpenter, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 4711 dated March 9th, 2021 in the amount of $182,707.01, subject to audit.
Second.
Great, thank you. You've heard the motion for approval of warrant number 4711. The motion was made by Mrs. Carpenter, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin-Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Onotis?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to approve warrant number 4713 in the amount of $542,840.80 dated March 29th, 2021, subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. You've heard the motion by Mrs. Carpenter for approval of warrant number 4713. That motion was seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Amico?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin-Dunn?
Yes.
And Mr. Onotis?
Yes. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Next, we'll go to continued business. We have two items. The first one, Mrs. Dunn, I'd like to turn it over to you for an update on the Weld School MSBA project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Couple of news flashes. Tomorrow, the MSBA will be meeting with a small group of our representatives, me, the mayor, and Dr. Vidala. And what they're going to do is they're going to go over the feasibility study that our OPM and our design team have come up with. It's going to be very similar to what folks have seen at the community meetings, but it'll be a more in-depth discussion with the MSBA, and they will be asking about all different facets of the design. They'll be asking about the, all kinds of really interesting pieces of that decision that has been made about which way to go and all the features that are going to be going into the new Welch School project. So that's exciting. Tomorrow also is the deadline for applications for the construction manager position. And after those are received, I think they have until 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, I will have a number of how many applicants came in on Thursday, and I will give that at the next meeting. And then the Welch School Building Committee is going to meet this month, March 25th. At that time, we'll be going over the information about the applicants, and there will be some recommendations from a subcommittee who will be looking into each of the people who applied and giving recommendations on who we would like to look at for the construction management position. So it's moving right along, and it's getting even more exciting.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Appreciate that update, as always. One other item I wanted to give a brief update on was the West School roof project. I'm very happy to report that we've taken another positive step forward in this project. February 25th, we presented to the the City Council, a request for $21,000 to perform a feasibility study to determine the need and cost for a potential repair and or replacement of the roof at the West Elementary School. I think all of us are familiar that the West is in dire need of this project. We had voted as a committee unanimously to move forward with this project, and thankfully the MSBA allowed us to partner with them on this project, as they have in other projects that have been very successful in the city. So this was the next step according to the MSBA, the Mass School Building Authority rules and regulation, to perform the feasibility study. It was unanimously voted on by the City Council, which was terrific. They were very supportive of this project, as they have been for a number of projects that we've moved forward on. So that has been now moved forward to the MSBA. We'll continue on with the accelerated repair program, hopefully to move this project along for work to be done as soon as we can do it. But that was a nice step forward for us. What will happen next is the cost will come to us in terms of doing the full work at the West School that's required, and then we will work with the MSBA to determine the percentage that we receive for reimbursement. And last projects we've done with the MSBA, it's been in that 53 to 56% reimbursement, so I anticipate that will be similar to that again. But I think we've developed a very good reputation with the MSBA, and they've been very supportive of the projects we've brought forward, which is terrific news. So we'll continue to keep the committee updated, but this was another positive step forward for us. Okay, any questions on any of the reports? Okay. We'll go to Superintendent's Report next, but before we did, I wanted to ask the committee's permission just to say a few words and make a statement and discussion before we go to the Superintendent's Report. So it's amazing to think that this week has been a year since our world changed so dramatically and COVID entered our lives. This brought a great deal of sadness and frustration to all of us in so many different ways. And certainly it has put increased and an immense pressure on our school administrators, the school committee, our educators, our cafeteria workers, our custodians, paraprofessionals. So much pressure has been put on all of us and our parents, family members, and most importantly, our students. This has been an extremely difficult year for all of us as we've tried to navigate through this changing world and to make the decisions that we think are best for our community, trying to gather information from the state and from the federal government, which is ever changing, certainly, and even there was new information provided today. But we're doing the very best we can, and I'm very proud of the effort that all of us have put forward, again, under immense pressure. And I'm very appreciative of our educators and the work that they've done for us. The last week and a half, couple weeks, we've been working diligently for many hours, many nights with our school committee, and our representatives from the Peabody Teachers Union. And I want to thank Dr. Vidala. I want to thank our city solicitor, Don Kahn, who's been terrific now, working a number of contracts for over 10 years, or just about 10 years. And I want to thank our team of Brandy Carpenter, our chair, John Olympio, and Joe Amico, who have been our negotiating team. And we've been meeting with Mary Henry, the union leaders now, and we've worked out a tentative agreement that I wanted to speak to today in terms of returning our students back to school on a full-time basis. Now keep in mind and Dr. Vidala will speak to this in a moment when he gives his report, but certainly students will be able to continue at home remote learning for the remainder of this year. This is for students that we are looking to bring back on a full-time basis and remove ourselves from the hybrid model. But before I do that, I did want to just state, again, my appreciation for everyone. Really came together yesterday, and we had meetings for a number of hours as we really tried to focus in on trying to reach a compromise. The teachers union brought forth very legitimate concerns that they had about moving forward that I think we are and will be able to address. And we also had a great deal of legitimate concerns as a school committee, as we hear from parents and educators and everybody in the school community. It was a really good exchange of concerns on both ends and things that needed to be addressed, needed to be worked on. Certainly things get strained during difficult times, and this certainly has been a difficult time, but I know that I speak for everyone on the school committee and in our school administration. We have tremendous respect for our educators and for the union, and they've had a very difficult job. And because of that, I believe our educators deserve to be beloved members of the community, just like they always have been. The work they've done for our students this past year under extremely trying circumstances has been terrific. And we're very fortunate to have here in the city of Peabody our teachers performing this important work. And again, we wanted to make sure we respect their concerns, respect their the issues that they brought forth, and they were very respectful of the issues that we brought forth and some of the concerns that we had on behalf of, after hearing from parents and from students and others. So with that, we have reached a tentative agreement. It's a framework of an agreement. It still needs some ratification, and there's still some, I think, minor issues to work out. But I can state that we are very confident that this will move forward with this vote. But we will be opening our elementary schools full-time, 5 days a week, March 29th. And we are going to be having our high school and our middle school students coming back to school 5 days a week, April 7th. So it is a little bit less than, or a little bit pushed back from where we originally had discussed the March 15th and March 29th. But we have now agreed tentatively that it will be the opening for elementary school 5 days a week will be Monday, March 29th. And for high school and middle school, it'll be Wednesday, April 7th. And the reason for those slight delays, 2 weeks for the elementary and slightly over a week for middle and high school, is there's some work that needs to be some logistical work, some cleaning protocols that have to be put in place, some logistical work for our teachers and our principals and everybody at the school to make sure that things are working properly and things are moving forward. But I always think that it's in the best interest of all of us to really work together and come up with an agreement. And I'm pretty confident in saying that we are one of, if not the biggest city that will have an agreement with their teachers union. And that's something to be said for the work that we've done and the work for the teachers union. We were able to reach a memorandum of agreement or understanding back when to start the hybrid. There were very few city governments, school departments that are able to reach that agreement, but we worked with the union to make that happen, and now I'm very confident that we've been able to reach that agreement to move forward with 5 days a week, which I think is an important step. It's great to be able to start thinking along those lines and moving in that direction. I think we do have a light at the end of the tunnel. I'm really confident in that, but there's still some logistical work that has to be done to make sure that the school is open safely and educationally is offering the right things for our students and our teachers. So I want to thank, again, all of our school committee members. All of you played a role in making this agreement happen. And I want to thank and show my appreciation to Mary Henry and the members of the Teachers Union, again, for working with us, coming together, mutually respecting all of our concerns at this time. And I feel very good about where we're at and where we're going. I think we're ahead of the large majority of communities in the state with these dates. And I think we've all expressed our feelings on the importance of getting our students back to school full-time, but the teachers brought forward legitimate concerns that we think we can address, and we're very confident that the agreement will be reached, and we'll be having those dates for our students. Again, elementary, March 29th, it's a Monday, and for our high school and for our middle school students, it'll be Wednesday, April 7th. So, talked a bit there, but wanted to make sure we got that information out. I wanted to open up if there are any questions or comments from the school committee before we go to our superintendent's report, and I know Dr. Vidala has some information pertaining to this as well. Any questions or comments at this time? Mr. Hockman, I'll turn it to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I begin my remarks, I want to thank the negotiation team chaired by Brandy Carpenter, Joe Miko, John Olympio, Don Kahn, Dr. Vidala, Mayor Betancourt, as well as the negotiating team for Unit A, our teachers union, for sitting down, staying at the table until you can hammer out an agreement that works for everybody. You know, I know parents and students and some teachers are eager to get back in the classroom 5 days a week, and there were some other staff members and teachers who had some concerns, and communication and conversations regarding those concerns are always better to take place at a table where there's an open and candid conversation and a true negotiation and a bargaining session, and that's what occurred. So I'm happy for that. While I wanted to have full in-person learning 5 days a week a long time ago, I can support this compromise because it does accomplish a whole lot. It gets our kids back in school for a couple of months this spring. It allows them to interact socially. It allows them to interact with their peers and their teachers and their principals and administrators and a whole bunch of their coaches and their whole bunch of other people. And hopefully as spring comes upon us in Peabody, it'll allow for mental health to start improving among our student population. I'm thankful for the teachers for like I said, for sitting down and talking and discussing this. There's nothing better than having harmony among the staff and the students, and I think we've accomplished it. You guys have accomplished that with the hard work that you put in, so thank you for that, and thank you to the leadership of the union and the membership of the union for also coming to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Any other comments or questions at this time, Mrs. Carpenter?
Thank you. I just want to echo the sentiments of what's already been said. It was very difficult for everyone involved. I think we're all under immense pressure. There's so many opinions about COVID and mental health, and I know how difficult this was, and I know that a lot of people had reached out to us in the last couple of weeks with so many different opinions and feelings and thoughts, and I appreciated every single one of those emails, every single one of those phone calls, every single person I spoke to, I learned something from. And I want you to know how much I appreciate that you reached out. And I'm really happy that we were able to come to a compromise that I think that we can all move forward with and will be in the best interest for everyone involved. And I do want to thank the union for meeting with us, for the respect that was given to us. I want to thank everybody here. None of us have ever been through anything like this. You know, we go through a lot of stuff on this committee, and this is by far the biggest and hardest thing I think we've ever had to go through. And I'm so proud to work with all of you because it was very enlightening, and it was a proud moment for us to get through something like this. And we're not finished, and we will continue to work hard, and we will do what is right by our staff, by our parents, by our children. This isn't finished at all. We're going to keep working on it. We still have things to work out, but I'm very happy, like you said, the light at the end of the tunnel, and I just want to say thank you to everyone, and please feel free to continue to reach out to me as we still have things to learn and try to help everyone that this involves. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Carpenter. Mr. Arnottis?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just going to, join the chorus in thanking you all, because it's, it's an incredibly impressive feat that you all accomplished as a negotiating team here. Our all-stars on the school committee, on the negotiating team, our union, you, Mr. Mayor, Dr. Vidala, Don Kahn, of course, and the parents and the students who have been along, for the ride with all this. It has been an incredibly difficult year. From head to toe, I think if we go back to where we were 9 months ago, and you can almost blink. I mean, it's been a really, really long slog, but I do think the biggest thing here is we are at the end of the tunnel. We're nearly there, and I'm going to support this compromise, but I just think, we keep saying compromise, and I just keep thinking community along with that, because that's what we are here. We're a huge school district with thousands of different stakeholders, and you do have to meet people where they're at and appreciate their perspective, and I think that's what happens when you get a successful compromise. So I'm just so grateful that this is done. Thank you to our union, Mary Henry, all our staff. This really is a good feat. I hope it continues to be successful, and I'm looking forward to a successful school year and getting our students back in the classroom. So thank you to everyone involved in this. Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Arnottis. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Honestly, the stars have aligned, and I think that has helped everyone throughout one of the most difficult times we've ever been through. As Mrs. Carpenter said, the respect and collaboration throughout is really what helped get us to this point. And there are so many people involved in a school system, right from the entire community on down to each individual student. Being able to work with all of those people, to listen to their concerns, to be respectful of the differences, because this has been a very, very difficult time for everyone. Being able to get to this point is a true credit to everyone working together throughout this year here at the Peabody schools and in the city of Peabody. And if you were to list a thank you to everyone, you've hit a lot of them, but I know there are even more who've made this possible. And I think it's a good example for other communities on how to work together to get to the point where you always have mutual respect and work as a team. So thank you to everyone who made this possible and who is continue to work on all the issues surrounding life in a pandemic.
Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Mr. Olympia, or Mr. Miko?
Thank you, through the chair. Thank you to Ms. Carpenter, Mayor, for your leadership, John, Mr. Olympio, for your leadership on that committee as well. Dr. Vidala, thank you. I said this a couple of weeks ago. I think we've all said this, but this has really been a pro-teacher school committee. We value our teachers. We value our educators, because those are the people who are the front line in front of our kids, and we obviously value our kids. In business, if you treat your customers right, if you don't treat your customers right, someone else will. If you don't treat your employees right, someone else will. That's kind of an old motto. So, I just think that we really need to focus on working together with the teachers. It is a community, as Mr. Arnottis said. This is an incredible community that comes together. We've seen it over and over. I also think this is a great opportunity for the governor and for Commissioner Riley to really put teachers first here. Because if you put teachers first and you want to put them in a situation where they can be vaccinated, essentially you're putting students first. And this is something that we really need to focus on. It's about the kids. We talked about the negotiations. There's a lot of compromise, give and take. But the real winners are the students, are the kids. And that's what we really have to keep the eye on the prize, is our children. But this was a tough time. I hope we don't ever have to go through it again, between the Zoom meetings and the phone calls and the running into people at the grocery store. But I'm glad that we've done it. I'm glad that we've been able to help people. We've been able to listen to people. We can't always solve problems, but this is a big step, and Peabody deserves this. This is a great community, and I can't wait to have and to say that we're the only district in the state K to 12 that will be in school full-time on April 7th. I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. Amico. Mr. Olympio?
Thank you. Through the chair, I mean, I pretty much echo everyone's sentiments. There's so many people to thank, the leadership on both sides, and the administration, Ms. Carpenter, everybody in this room, the mayor, and the teachers and their leadership. What I'm really proud of is when you get to be with people for an extended period of time through the tough times, it's easy to be always playing ahead or be with people when the times are good. But you really don't know the measure of people's character is when their backs are against the wall, they've stubbed their toe a few times, things have touched people personally, and we're able to hear each other out on both sides. It was very tough for me negotiating with the teachers, and I could see the hurt in their eyes. Some of them have been affected in different ways through this past year, whether it's loss of loved ones and sickness, and that wasn't lost on me. It wasn't just something we had to do. So, but yet, they're professional. We were thinking about what's the best way we can get back to the classrooms for the best of the children, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we had some tension, but we never lost respect for each other. And I'm proud of being part of Peabody's community for that, and I think that says a lot. Again, it's easy to spike the football when things are going well, but when things aren't, and people have different emotions, different opinions, do we listen to people? Do we look in their eyes? And I know each and every one of us have always done that. I see it in people's eyes. Everybody's heart is in the right place, including the teachers. I always said, right from the fall, I felt like they were playing with one hand tied behind their back from the get-go. And they really should be commended about this. And I agree with what Mr. Amico said. Hopefully the state can get the teachers vaccinated sooner than later, and we can move on, and certainly better days ahead. But that's what I'm sitting here thinking, how proud I am that as a community, as a district, we're able to come together to have this type of agreement where there's so much bad news going on across the state, across the country. You see it all over. It's like a three-ring circus in some places, but yet we've been able to accomplish something, and it's really for the best of everybody, and it just makes me really proud, and just thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olympio. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. That was terrific, and I really feel like we're moving in a good direction, so thank you, everyone. I'd like to go back then to our agenda, to our superintendent's report, and I know...
We need a motion on this.
Oh, yes, actually, thank you. I'd entertain a motion for the school committee to agree to those dates as the starting dates for our students to return back to school 5 days a week. Again, March 29th for elementary and April 7th for middle school and high school.
So moved.
Heard the motion by Mr. Arnottis, seconded by Mr. Olympio. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin-Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Arnottis? Yes.
Thank you. I'll turn it to you, Dr. Vidala, for your superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item on the superintendent's report is the superintendent's formative evaluation, which we will be tabling. We'll take that up at the next school committee meeting. And I'll move on to the second item, which is a bit of good news, where we are going to have some recognition. Okay. So the first item is going to be recognition for Mr. Todd Busey. So last Friday, Project 351 recognized Mr. Busey as the 2021 Service Hero, which is a huge accomplishment, and Mr. Busey has been involved with Project 351 for about 10 years, and he always is there and has been a leader and really has contributed quite significantly to Project 351 and the Service Hero. So we were able to get a couple people, representatives from Project 351, including their executive director, Carolyn Casey, and our Project 351 ambassadors, Connie and Noah, to celebrate Mr. Busey on Friday, and he received this great letter from them, as well as on Sunday night, they recognized him as a 2021 service hero. And the way that, that they do it is they name the different teams after really significant people. And there's people that are longstanding people like John Lewis and Pete Frates and Martin Richard, as well as Amanda Gorman. And so each team is named after someone, and so this year's team, there'll be a team named after Mr. Busey. So it's a huge accomplishment and just a really great recognition for all the work that he's done. So I would just take a minute to thank Mr. Busey.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Vidal. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is wonderful. I think Mr. Busey has been involved with Project 351 since it first started. So it's really nice to see them honoring him in that way, and he deserves that. They do a great job here with the project itself, but I know he does a lot for that entire system, so that's great.
No, it was a great event, and he loved the surprise. He loved being surprised with this honor. I've never seen anybody more uncomfortable with being recognized.
Exactly.
But yeah, extremely well deserved. I think all of us think the world of Mr. Busey, and he does not certainly seek accolades like this or individual recognition, but he deserves to be recognized. So it was great to have that moment to allow all of us to thank him for his service. So I turn it back to you, Dr. Vidal.
Great, thank you. So we'd like to review a little bit of the parent survey results and address one of the issues that came up from the surveys, which is remote learning options, not only for this year, but potentially in the future. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Lord to review the parent survey results and discuss a potential option for remote learning in the next school year as well.
Thanks, Dr. Rowland. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I do want to point out, you folks are a model for the United States Congress. I mean, people need to take the example that's been going on here in Peabody. It's really an honor to be part of this process. It's been great to be behind the scenes and just watch you do the things you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
We've had some incredible voices over the last week or so when we've sent out our surveys to all of our parents. As you can see, we've had 98% of our parents respond at the elementary level. And 86% of our students would like to come back to full-time in-person, but at the same time, 14% wanted to come back but stay remote. So looking at the numbers, we had around 487, as of today, there's 487 students that are fully remote, 137 of them want to come back, and 322 want to stay as a fully remote option. So this was a rather loud voice. We start to have conversations with our remote learning teachers. We've been watching them in the classroom right along. Just talked with some of our administrators involved with the remote learning and also talked with some of the students. There's something really special happening in the remote learning teaching learning experience in Peabody. And it's because our teachers are teaching our curriculum, our assessments, and they're delivering the instruction that's typically going on in the classroom. And it's not sort of a canned curriculum that is being handed out to the students as an asynchronous event. So it's become a special event. It's really getting some wings. So again, 75% of our current remote students are going to come in. And let me go to our remote learning options. So we are starting to explore the ways that the Department of Education will allow virtual learning to take place in school systems. The first is a district-wide remote learning program, which would be like a K-12 solution, and there would be an in-district virtual school. So you can apply in different ways to the Department of Ed to get a virtual learning experience. And just want to take a few minutes to run why we would do such a thing, what it would look like, how it would happen, where it would happen, and when it would happen. And in the conversations over the last couple of weeks, I think the main reason for it was captured best by Emily Moore. She said teachers are finding their passion with this, and students are finding their way. It's not for every student, but there are a large number of students in Peabody that I think would benefit from this. So the commissioner had sent out an invitation to schools that would want to explore what virtual learning would look like. So we did send out an application. We started a conversation with the Department of Ed about what this might look like in Peabody. Again, we've had some very positive experiences with our students and our teachers with respect to that virtual learning. We do have some capacity. Some of our teachers have really got to be quite proficient at delivering instruction remotely. I continue to be amazed by what our teachers do in the regular classroom, but the tech that's been established by some of our remote teachers has really been quite remarkable. Some of the things that we will secure, you may know we've doubled the number of homeschool students in Peabody. We're hoping to recapture some of those homeschool students, bring them back. They might be more comfortable with the remote learning experience. We're trying to reduce some of the crowding in the buildings. If we do have some students that choose to go remotely, we might be able to free up a classroom here and there. Some of the teachers have to rove and go classroom to classroom to classroom to teach. This might provide a room for them in that environment. And the bottom line is that it might be a better option for some of our families. So what is it? It is a K-12 remote learning option. It's only for Peabody students with only Peabody teachers. It would be a mostly synchronous learning instructional experience for kids, just like it is right now. It would go for the 180 days, just like a regular school year, and it would parallel the existing school calendar with professional development days, teacher conferences, and so forth. How would it work? Just like the kids are experiencing it now, and just like the teachers are delivering it. It will be our curriculum, our assessments, our teachers, their instructional practices that they become so good at will be continue to happening. The school will look just like it did in the building, but it would be at home for the students. The students could also engage in co-curricular activities. They could do sports and all the regular activities after school that they might want to. Some of them are engaged virtually, some they could go in person, but this would be a remote experience for them. So where might it take place? We started some conversations. There's a large open area behind the Peabody Learning Academy where the police and fire department have been looking to modify that space for training purposes. It's large enough to accommodate a number of classrooms where teachers could teach remotely and set up a tech space in that area. And we started conversations with various groups to see if we can get that to happen. And of course the kids would have remote instruction at home. So when would this happen? We're looking to start some community forums in the next few weeks, send out some Google Meet links and say, hey folks, what do you think of this? Here are some details that flesh out a lot more than what I shared with you here right now. See if there's some interest and get some numbers. I mean, let's see if it's still, if we got 600 kids that want to do this in the city of Peabody, that's a virtual school district. The one in New Hampshire that we studied has 600 kids in it. So there's our timeline. That's basically what it would look like. Survey the community, maybe make a plan over the next couple of months, see what it would look like, and hire some teachers. They would transfer in. And anyway, there's where the thinking is right now. I know there's a lot more details. I can answer some questions right now to get us started, but it's something we need to think about in the next couple of months because there's certainly a lot of interest. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Lord. Any questions at this time? Mr. Miko?
Sure. Mr. Mayor, through the chair to Dr. Lord, Dr. Vidala. No, I think this is great. 20 years ago when I started teaching, there was something called differentiated instruction, right? This is welcome to 2021, right? So this is fantastic. This is something that I could really see growing in the future. Please keep us updated, and when you're ready with the plan, I would support this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Miko. Mrs. Dunn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is really very interesting, and I'm very happy to see this coming out of the situation that we've been in right now. It's really good that we're going to look at education with a new viewpoint, and any of the things that we've learned through the pandemic that could be very helpful changes. I think that shows a lot of growth, and I really think that that's extremely forward-looking. I'm thrilled to see this.
I did want to share one other thing. The NEASC, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, they have completely morphed themselves into an accreditation institution, K-12. And there is one school district in Massachusetts that is currently going for district-level accreditation in Fairhaven. If this is successful in Peabody, it could be the first virtually fully accredited institution in the state. It's really quite remarkable because the NESC has set up the opportunity for us to do that. And I would love to be a part of that. I mean, it just seems like a great opportunity to make something really special happen and put Peabody on the map. I mean, if my kids were toddlers, I want to come here and have them be part of this experience. It was just really, really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Oh, do you have one more question, Bev?
No,
Dunn?
actually, I was just going to say, Dr. Lord has encouraged us in the past about that NEASC accreditation because it was on the horizon when we went through ours. And it really is something we probably ought to look at for that K-12 because it could be very, very helpful, and they would appreciate this kind of innovation. So I think we should look into it.
It starts with the vision of the graduate, and the vision of the graduate is really moving into all of the schools at this point. The self-manager rubric, all the homeroom teachers will be managing the, how are the kids doing with respect to their social emotional health. That's going to happen citywide within the next couple of weeks. So we'll get some good data on the vision of the graduate. That's exactly what kind of thing the NEAC is looking for, a real commitment to a vision for the whole school.
That's good.
Thank you, Dr. Lord.
Great, so thank you, Dr. Lord, and, you know, I think one of the big things is that we're listening to our families, and we're trying to adapt in real time and offer multiple pathways. And so if traditional schooling isn't working, then we have the capacity to provide one of those options. You know, we'd love to flesh it out and really see if we can offer some of those things for our families. So the next item on the Superintendent's Report is a little bit of a deeper dive into the expanded in-person learning. So I would like to begin by looking at our community metrics as we had showed last week. The top section in blue is the last 3 14-day periods. And so we always look here at the average cases per 100,000. And it looks like this Thursday when the numbers come out that we'll be well within the 20s. So we were 33 and then 31, and now we'll be right around 24. And even more encouraging is that 7-day total. The last 7 days, our cases per 100,000 is down to 18.5. So we're definitely trending in the right direction, which is really important for us. It helps inform our decisions. But we continue to, you know, encourage the community and encourage everyone to, you know, stay vigilant with the mitigation strategies until our community can be fully vaccinated. But we're headed in the right direction, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel. So over the past week, we've really focused on the reopening of the elementary schools because as the phased-in approach, they'll be our first entry point. And so last week, we had school meetings. We had voluntary staff meetings at each of our elementary schools. So all elementary schools, they were held before and after school. March 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, we had before and after school meetings at each of the schools. And the reason why we wanted to do these individually rather than one big one is that each school is so unique that we wanted to address the concerns and the logistics at each individual school, because some of our buildings are older than others, some of our buildings are a little newer, we have different size schools, and the enrollment is different. So each of those things we wanted to address on a personal level and really hear from our faculty. So we really tried to focus on addressing the concerns and answering questions of the teachers. And so, you know, we have heard a number of concerns, and one of those concerns, of course, was we need more time, and I think the committee has addressed that today. And, you know, we really want to work with our teachers. They've done a tremendous job this year. They've worked so hard, and we want to make sure that we have a thoughtful reopening. And so we want to make sure that we're addressing each of those concerns, and there's some things that need to be fleshed out in terms of the cleaning protocols was a big concern as well. And, you know, the principals were able to address the logistical concerns of arrival, dismissal, lunch and snack as you bring more students back at the elementary level becomes more of a concern. So we were able to address that uniquely at each of the schools, and then talk about the bathrooms and, you know, the potential of bringing in an outside cleaning company to assist in the cleaning, just to, you know, really try to ease some of that anxiety of coming back and making sure that we do it through a thoughtful response. So this slide is very similar to a slide that I shared when we reopened. And when we talked to a number of the teachers and a number of the faculties, we said that this feels like another reopening. It feels like we're coming back. And so every school, every elementary school has updated their reopening plans, and those are all the new protocols and all the new items that they've been working on have been updated as of Friday, March 5th, and those are accessible on our school websites. The middle and high school will complete their updates as they work with the teachers around their reopening, and we'd like those posted by March 19th. So, you know, we will do a little deeper dive on that at the next school committee meeting, leading into our April 7th return. So all of the logistics and the time frames and things like that are all contained in our reentry plans, and they have the procedures clearly spelled out. So some of the steps that we're taking to ensure that the full in-person return to learning is we really want to make sure that our community is safe and that we continue to have the testing events. So there is a testing event here tomorrow, March 10th, that you have to pre-register for. And we're also going to do that on March 24th. So we'll have a testing event right before we welcome our elementary students back. And then we'll have a testing event on March 14th, which is right before April vacation, and then on March 28th, which is right after April vacation. So we want to make sure that we continue to have a number of testing protocols in place so that we can continue to keep our community safe. Some of the other steps that we've taken is we've purchased some supplies and materials. So again, each school is a little bit different. So some of our larger schools, they were looking for some plexiglass dividers to have in the teacher's lunchroom and the student lunchroom. So if you can see this picture here, there's a little setup here of a plexiglass divider that helps provide a little bit more security and a little bit more for the kids to be able to eat lunch in the cafeteria. So as we get a little bit bigger and we have more kids, we'd like to try to address that as best we can. We've purchased some additional PPE that teachers have requested, and it would make them feel more comfortable returning. And we know that some of our classrooms that we haven't been using, or some of our office spaces that we haven't been using right now, such as internal offices without windows, we'd like to purchase air purifiers. So we're working with our facilities department to purchase these small 500 square foot air purifiers, which would be for internal offices, and then any classroom without a window, these larger units can service up to 1,500 square feet. So we'll identify the spaces in the classrooms to make sure that we're accommodating that. In addition, we have some staffing considerations. So one of the big things that this committee has really talked about quite a bit is how to address the student mental and behavioral health needs that we have. So a frame of reference, last year in FY21, there were 11.5 school adjustment counselors in the city. Over the summer, the school committee had allocated an additional 2 school adjustment counselors for this year, FY21, one at the Higgins and one at the high school. And so we've had those 2 this year, the entire year. And so what we've done is, we've looked at some of the funding streams that we have from the state, and we've identified a source that we can hire 3 additional school adjustment counselors to support our full return to school. One would be at Peabody High School, one would be at the Higgins Middle School, and then we would have an additional counselor to add to some of the caseload needs at the McCarthy and the Brown School. So, we'd really like to address some of those needs. I think that's something that the committee has really prioritized as we return to school, that we want to make sure when we have more kids back that we can address those mental health needs. And then there's been some concerns around addressing coverage and student support. So we're looking at our kindergarten paras, our part-time paras, and our specialists to make sure that we maximize their number of hours, and that we're bringing them in and making sure that we're fully staffed across the board to meet those needs. And then finally, thinking about our next steps. So we will continue to work collaboratively with our unions to implement the return to full in-person learning. I can't say enough about the work that they've done, and we got a lot of really good feedback from those in-person meetings that we had at each of the elementary schools. So we plan on meeting with the Higgins and then the high school faculty as we get closer to their return to really address the concerns that they have and work together to make sure that we're ready to welcome our students back. This week we're going to schedule building walkthroughs with the facilities in the union. We did this over the summer. It was really helpful to understand what the layouts of the classrooms would be and where the teaching spaces would be. So that went a long way. We're planning on scheduling those again. This week we're finalizing the transportation requests and any options that we have for students. I know that was a big concern of people. And then we're also working by Friday at the elementary level to finalize the class rosters for those students that would like to go from remote to in-person. And I think a big concern for some of our families that would like to stay remote is to ensure that the students will receive full credit. And so we can confirm that any student that is fully remote will receive full credit for this school year. Obviously we want to make sure that they complete their work and do everything they need to do. But they will receive full credit, and our in-person students will receive full credit. And then we'll make sure that we continue to communicate our finalized return to school dates and our schedules with the community. It was a big first step with the vote from the committee today, and we'll continue to work with our union and our families to make sure that we can get the kids back safely as soon as possible. So I'll end it there if there's any questions about our in-person learning.
Thank you, Dr. Vidala. Mr. Amico?
Through the chair, Dr. Vidala, you mentioned buses and transportation. Obviously, students who are not on a bus right now, even if they're hybrid, can they apply to be on a bus at this point?
Yes, they can. So we have updated the school website with the new bus application forms, and our transportation department is processing those as we speak.
Also, if I could, once we're up and running, I really think we should send an invite to Commissioner Riley and Governor Baker, because I think what we're doing is fantastic. This has been a whole community coming together, teachers, parents, elected officials. I really think they need to see how great this is going to be on April 7th and beyond. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Okay, Dr. Vidala, thank you very much for your report. We'll go to public participation. Is there anyone in the queue that would like to speak? I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, so we have a number of people that are here as attendees, and if anyone would like to speak, they can please raise their hand. Seeing none.
Okay. We do not have any written communications today, so why don't we go to subcommittee reports?
I think, Mr. Mayor, I think we did have a late communication from Ms. Weed.
Yes. We did have a petition, I believe, that was presented to us from Lauren Weed. It was provided to us.
Motion to receive.
Motion to receive. Made by Mr. Hockman, seconded by Mr. Olympio. All in favor of receipt? Thank you for that, Lauren. Okay,
Mr.
subcommittee
Chairman.
reports. Mrs. Dunn?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, could we also, just for the record, I'd just like to say, I know many of us have been receiving emails from the staff, and I know I counted mine over the weekend, and I have to try to reply to all of them, but it's over 145 at the moment, so received 145 additional email messages on the issue of the reopening.
Okay, thank you. Subcommittee reports. Education Subcommittee. Where am I?
Here,
Mr. Miko.
nothing to report.
Thank you. I know we made some changes and the seating's
That's
a little
okay.
different. Finance, Mrs. Carpenter?
I think that report's been given.
Yes, I think it has been. School safety,
Nothing to
Mr.
report.
Olympio. Athletics and wellness, Mr. Hockman.
Mr. Arnottis.
Nothing to
Mr. Arnottis.
Actually,
Quality, yeah.
Through the chair to Mr. Arnottis, I've received a couple of emails. I don't know how, well, let's throw it out there. The state's starting to open up. We're seeing the state wanting students to come to school. I think we should probably take a look at our athletic policy for attendance. Presently, right now, we have 2 spectators going to an indoor event. I was at a volleyball game today. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I think we can add another person. So with that, if I could, I'd like to make a motion to amend our policy to add 3 spectators to our indoor events presently, and then we'll look at the next season as we move forward.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, and now, Mr. Miko, is that for indoor? And I think right now we have volleyball indoor.
We have indoor volleyball, I believe that's, is basketball still running?
No, basketball
So
season
I
is.
think I think it's indoor volleyball, and I think we really need to look at our football attendance when that.
Well, that's why I was wondering if we wanted to add a person there as well.
If, I would say for indoor volleyball, let's just add the 1 person, but for outdoor football, I think we could, I know we have a lot more players, but we have a lot of space there. We could really accommodate 4, I think we can accommodate 4 people.
I think you could have it higher for an outdoor event. I think that's very reasonable at this point.
Because
Why don't we stay at 4, and then we're meeting in 2 weeks, if it's okay?
Yeah, why don't we reevaluate it on a 2-week basis?
Okay.
And go from
But
there.
I'd like to go with the 3 for indoor, 4 for outdoor,
Yep.
and maybe in a week or 2, we can amend it. I made the motion, you guys can amend it, and I'd be glad to.
No, I'm personally very supportive of that, and in terms of the football games, we have cheerleaders, band, so, there's more people certainly we're dealing with, but I'm very comfortable going with 4 and then seeing how it progresses from there. So on the motion, it was made by Mr.
Second.
Amico, seconded by Mr. Olympio. On the motion, Mrs. Dunn?
I have a question. Does anyone know what the state regulation is on outdoor capacity? I know there is one. I just don't know what it is offhand, and I don't know how many students we have, at a football game. There used to be 60 kids on the teams. I mean, I'm going way back. I don't
40.
know what the number is right now.
They're dressing either 40 or 45.
45, okay. Even at that, I'm wondering if that is going to put us over the current state outdoor limit. I know it sounds silly, but it's something we really do need to check on.
Well, we could,
Mr. Arnottis?
thank you, we could take that motion tonight, approve it, and then, in the meantime, we can check the guidelines, and if we're out, then, we could make it tentative to it falling within the state standards, and if it doesn't, then it'll revert back until we come back in 2 weeks and we can look at it. I would expect it, I think it will be probably within the standards. I mean, the outdoor dining policy certainly allowed more people than, I think, an event type of situation. But I could be wrong, so I think it's better to check. But I know with wedding venues, I think they're allowed to have
Yeah.
a significant amount of people inside now. So for an outdoor event, I think we would be okay to do this. But obviously, we want to be, correct. But I think we could approve this pending it falling within the state guidelines.
I'll be honest, I'm trying to remember what the number is for a wedding.
Yeah, you would know.
You would know.
Oh, my God. I actually think it was only 100 at the moment. And I really and truly do not know because, as we know, these things are changing still by the hour.
Yes.
It's very frustrating. I know everybody wants to be able to go, and it really does sound kind of silly, but I will, when it comes to a vote, I'll be honest, I will vote against it only because I really want to know exactly what we're doing and so that we don't get in any trouble with the governor or the commissioner if we're going to send them a nice letter. Because the one I'd like to send the one I want to send them isn't so nice, but I would just like to be cautious. And I honestly don't know what the new number is.
If I could, I mean, in the hopes, every day things change.
Yeah.
We went from, look what happened today with the breaking news at 4 o'clock in the afternoon about schools. I'm hoping that if we make this motion and we approve it tonight, that before we even have to ask for forgiveness, that maybe they open it up a little bit more. It's worth a shot.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do know that they've opened up large arenas to 12% of capacity, whether it's indoors or outdoors. I'll say I sit on a reopening committee for my temple where there are several medical doctors who all say that there's no science behind these restrictions. They're arbitrary, and I'm not sure. And those folks are certainly much smarter than I am when it comes to medical issues for sure, and probably about most other things. And then candidly, I'll say I don't care. I don't care if we piss the governor off. I don't care if we piss the commissioner off. Let's get 4 people in to watch a football game. Let's get 3 people in to watch a volleyball game. If somebody wants to slap our wrist later on, so be it. Let's revisit it every 2 weeks so we can go up, not down, hopefully, on the motion, please.
I think we should just do a motion to adjourn after that. Motion's been made. Any further comments before we go to roll call? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Olympio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Ms. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Whitman-Dunn?
No,
Mr. Arnottis?
Yes.
Okay.
it's only because I want proof. That's all.
All right, quality and standards. I know who's the chair of this one. This is done. Chair for life.
Well, this evening before you, we have file number FFB Memorials, and it's here for second reading. So I would like to make a motion that file FFB Memorials be approved by the school committee for the second reading and then become policy. So moved.
Second.
Further motion by Mrs. Dunn, thank you, and you've been seconded by Mr. Arnottis. Any comments or questions before roll call? Mr. Hockman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Ms. Dunn and to the Quality and Standards Subcommittee. Thank you for your work on this. I brought up, and we've talked about probably the impetus for the review of this policy. Can you just explain to me and the audience, what the policy does in regard to things that we talked about earlier in the fall?
Oh, sure. Very briefly, when there was an issue at the high school concerning the Wall of Honor, and in listening to all the people involved with that, we realized that we needed a policy to deal with a situation like this, governing what could be placed on the, basically displayed in the schools. So there was a boilerplate memorial policy. And came out from MASC, and the language in that was to prohibit all memorials in schools. And so the subcommittee, we talked about this, and we wanted to allow memorials in our schools because we have them, and we felt that we have a policy, a process of how they would be approved, that was okay. But we also realized that the issue we were dealing with, specific with the high school, but trying to keep it in general for future use, we are working on, I will say, almost a parallel policy. That's the one that's a work in progress. We're getting input from the educators because it talks about just the use of displays in the classrooms in the schools. So this one on the memorials is specifically with memorials for people or events that are significant and are more of a permanent nature. And then the issue that is coming up in another policy, which isn't before you tonight because it is still being worked on, that is to deal with the actual displays that teachers utilize throughout their career, throughout our students' lives in school, and that is being formulated as well. Now, neither one of these policies takes away the issue of the Wall of Honor and the issues that it raised. So we're going to be working on that with Dr. Vidala, Mr. Magno, teachers, students at the high school level. But we really did need to get some guidance in place before we really open up that process. And having some policies in place that clarified situations and honestly vocabulary in some cases is why we came up with this policy on memorials. And then there is another one that really is putting displays into instructional materials, which is where it belongs in the policy manual. And the people who know best the language to use and the process really are the educators. And so we're getting their input as far as how to frame this properly. And then we're going to be able to go out and discuss this with the community on the specific issue with the Wall of Honor.
Yep. Please, Mr. Hockman.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Dunn, thank you very much. Thank you for the explanation. Thank you for taking both of these issues on. And I just want to make sure that that we're going to pass this memorial policy tonight, and we'll work on the displays as it comes forward. But neither one of them relieve this committee of the opportunity to speak as a government.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
No.
so okay, yeah.
No. But I will say one of the things that the goal of the policy is always to be mindful of our role as committee members, that there are a lot of school-based decisions that we've hired a superintendent to work with the principals to operate under our policies. So there are times when I know people feel like we should be able to just say, do this, do that, do this, do that. And it doesn't quite work that way because of basically the Ed Reform Act, but also because of the need for respect of the roles of the people in the school department and being able to support them in their roles. And there's a lot of layers to everybody's job. Ours, superintendent, the principals, the teachers. So being able to craft something where everybody knows how to go forward, always being mindful of the respective responsibilities of everyone. That's what we're trying to do.
Great. Thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Limpio?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mrs. Carpenter?
Yes.
Ms. Griffin Dunn?
Yes,
Mr. Arnott?
Yes.
thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Dunn. Parent and Student Advisory Boards, Mrs. Dunn, anything to report there?
Oh, I'm sorry, nothing tonight, but I am still trying to schedule a meeting for the parents, so.
Okay. Building and Grounds?
I was going to talk about air
Stockman?
purifiers and expanded cleaning, but Dr. Vidal already told everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman. Special Education Parent Advisory Board, Mr. Olympio?
Nothing new to report.
City Council and Legislative Delegation, Mr.
Nothing
Arnottis?
new to report.
Okay, Redistricting Subcommittee, Mr.
Yeah,
Hockman?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a meeting scheduled for this upcoming Monday here at the Higgins and via Zoom for some participants. I think we've gotten to the point where we're able to place all of our students on a map with some information that came through tonight with Dr. Lord's presentation. We might need to identify a couple hundred students who will be or hope to be remote in 2021, 2022, which will change some of the work that we do, but we'll take it on and we'll work together. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really surprised to see so many families. I mean, that's like 300 families, just elementary, not even talking middle and high yet. There's a lot of kids that want to play in their own sandbox at home. Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, our next school committee meeting is March 23rd.
Can we, with that, through you to Dr. Vidala, since we're rapidly approaching senior week and graduation and things like that, if we could on our next agenda get an update on what that looks like so that we can give our senior class and their families a little notice as to what we're able to do. As we've all said, things are changing week to week with information coming from the governor and DESE and other things. So if you can give us an update, that
Yep,
would be
and I know there's a large parent committee that has been formed already at the high school, and they're working on different senior events and what will be eligible, and it's one of those things where we'll do everything that we can to make sure that they do it within the guidelines.
exciting times.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Hockman. That's a good suggestion. So any other items, please, that you'd like to have on the next agenda, please handle that in the regular course. And our next meeting again is March 23rd. Thank you, everyone, for a good meeting. Have a motion to adjourn. All right, thank you.